quick, I just want to remind everybody that you guys can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Plus, don't forget to check out the Profit Boost bonus tokens in the app that you can use on the UNC Duke game. You can go into your account page and learn all about your boost right now. You just have to go visit fanduel.com/UCSS to shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
So, I don't remember when this came out, if it was Monday or maybe it was last week.
The kickoff rules?
Yeah.
It was proposed on Sunday.
So, okay. So, there was, every year around this time, there are rules proposals that are put out by teams or whatever. The Browns actually, Andrew Berry talked about, you talked about that? Pushing the trade deadline back. I'm 100% with Andrew Berry. Of course it should be pushed back. But one of the other rules that you guys didn't get a chance to discuss, and we'll get to it now, is a potential significant change to the way kickoffs are done. Mike, you got the details for us.
Yeah, both onside kicks and kickoffs. We'll talk about the onside kicks first, then we'll do the kickoffs. Yeah. But according to the new proposal, which is just a proposal, this has not been voted in, but just
24 out of 32 owners have to vote.
75% has to vote
for it
to pass.
Change.
The new onside kick rules would eliminate surprise onside kicks. So you'd have to call it in advance, and as you can see on the screen, you can only do it while trailing in the fourth quarter. The caveat, which makes this at least a little bit entertaining, is the NFL had banned overloading one side of the field for onside kicks, which had eliminated essentially any chance of a return. I don't have the exact numbers, but the return rate, recovery rate, or success rate on onside kicks in 2023 was less than 1%. It was like 2 for 100 and 126 or some absurd number like that. Now you can overload one side of the field, which they're hoping, even if it's declared ahead of time, will bring it back up to about the 5% recovery rate it had been in prior years before they banned the overload. So we'll start with the onside kick. You take out surprise onside kicks. You have to declare and can only do it in the fourth quarter when trailing, but you can overload one side of the field. Essentially goes back to the previous rules.
Why are we taking out surprise onside kicks?
I think it's to give the team the ability to overload the field so you take out the injury risk of guys flying.
Well, no, I don't think you could. I think you got to put it all together, Mike, because the reason they'd have to do this with the onside kick is because of where they're putting the players, I think, for the new kick rules. Isn't that a big part of this?
I thought if you declared the onside kick, it'd be from where you used to onside kick. I don't know.
Right, but if you're not doing an onside kick, then the kicker and the rest of the team are in a
Oh, yeah, okay.
So that's why. We can't do them separately.
Okay, so then the kickoff rule, and bad job out of me, Bull, you're right, that does make a difference in why you have to declare. The new kickoff rule is what the XFL adopted last season, and Bull, you're right, they actually are getting rid of it this season in the UFL. They're going back to traditional kickoffs. Right.
They're combining the XFL and USFL.
But the XFL's kickoff rules last season were a lot of fun. Essentially, the kicker for the team kicks off at his own 40-yard line. The other 10 players in the defense start at the opponent's 40-yard line. They cannot move till the receiver catches the ball. Now, there's a few caveats.
No. Here we go. The kick and return teams would line up on the receiving team's 40.
Yeah, but the kicker's still back on his own side.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Right.
Yeah, so it's a 5-yard. Yes. There's a 5-yard collision zone. Essentially, what they're trying to do is eliminate the high-speed collisions on kickoff, which led to so many concussions and injuries. Now, if the ball goes out of the end zone for a touchback, the offense then starts at the own 35-yard line. So it's an additional 10 yards on a kickback, on a touchback. If the ball is kicked and rolls into the end zone, it's a traditional touchback at the 25. What you're aiming to do as a kicker is get the ball to land or get the returner to catch the ball inside the 20-yard line and the end zone, which forces a return. And then you have your guys, 10 players versus 10 blockers and the returner, and there's only a 5-yard run-up for collisions. It was very successful in the XFL last season. It brought back the kickoff, which in the NFL is a non-existent play.
They changed the rule in the NFL. I don't remember exactly when they did this, but if on a kickoff, if the ball, like right now, if you could just declare, you can essentially declare a fair catch on a kickoff.
You can fair catch and get the 25-yard line.
Right. That would be gone.
Yes.
So if the ball lands at the 1-yard line, you got to pick it up and run with it, or you've got the ball at the 1-yard line.
Yeah.
That will lead to a lot more kickoffs. And the reason they've been making the kickoffs less thing is because they didn't want these big collisions. But what Mike's point is, the team that's kicking off outside of the kicker, the rest of the team will be at the receiving team's 40, and the rest of the receiving team, besides 1 or 2 kick returners, will be at the 35. So they'll be 5 yards away from each other. So there'll be no massive collisions because they won't be running all these yards and that's why
the safety
part of this they have to change the onside kick, and you can't have a surprise onside kick. Just like you can't do a surprise 2-point conversion anymore.
Yeah.
Because you could, but you
can fake a field goal.
Right. But yeah,
they should just.
It's very complicated, and the league doesn't often make drastic changes like this. It would certainly make kickoffs.
Way more fun.
Here's the thing: when they first changed the extra point rule, I was like, "What's the point? Why are they doing this? Who cares?" But it made the extra point a more interesting play.
And you can
this
lose.
would make the kickoff a more interesting play, not only because there'll be more returns, but also now
there's strategy involved.
Absolutely.
A lot of strategy.
Right now, on most kickoffs, the kicker just kicks it out of the end zone or into the end zone.
There were 0 kick returns in the Super Bowl. 0.
Right. But now, the kicker is never going to be trying to kick it in the end zone. You go from a situation where kickers have always been trying to kick it in the end zone. Now, they're trying to get it as close to the goal line without going over. That's an interesting skill set.
I would not even have him be a kicker. I would put him back, and I'd have a punter punt. Like, take the kicker out, make him a punter. So now, if you want to put them 5 yards apart, he punts the ball really high in the air, and you can't move until the ball hits the ground.
Right.
Yeah.
And the offensive players that are on the line, those guys can't move either.
No
correct?
one moves till the returner
So
touches
only
the
the
ball.
2 return guys and the kicker can move before the ball is caught.
Correct.
Or what if it hits the ground?
That's what I'm
If
saying.
it hits the ground and then rolls into the end zone, it's a normal touchback.
No. Let's say it hits the ground and the return guy tries to pick it up. Can the guys not run until he picks it up, or can they run as soon as it hits the ground?
To my understanding, and don't quote me on this,
Yeah.
my understanding, if it hits the ground, it's a game on. Game on.
So it's once the ball is touched, essentially,
yeah.
by a player of the field.
So think about the odds of this. Okay, if you're a punter, you punt the ball, you sky punt it, right?
Yeah.
It lands right in between somebody. It hits the ground. Can you imagine the melee? You don't know if it's going to bounce backwards, leftwards.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be crazy. Like, that would be the best way to get an onside kick because you don't know where it's going to go.
That's true.
It's off a tee, which is the one, and I'm not sure if
Yeah,
they would
sure, it
allow
wouldn't
it
be
to
a
be
punt.
a drop
Yeah,
punt. But
right.
right now, today, in the NFL, the kick return's a non-existent play.
Basically.
I don't know the exact percentages, but I'm going to guess.
And there's really no strategy.
93% of the time, the ball's kicked out of the end zone for a touchback.
Yeah.
You get maybe 1 kick return a game if you're lucky, which has taken out some of the most exciting plays in football. Go back to Josh Cribbs, one of the most popular guys to ever play for the Browns, especially in the modern era. His best trait was kick returns. And you go back and look at the XFL stats, and I have a friend who works for the XFL who said they're livid that it's being taken out of the game because it was so fun and such a big part of their success last year.
Yeah.
That this, even if it creates 4 or 5 kick returns a game, that's 4 or 5 exciting plays of football that we're not getting.
And it's not just the kick returns. It's that if you kick it into the end zone, the offense starts at the 35. That's a massive
severe
change.
consequences. And it adds strategy.
Now you're like 2 plays away from a field goal
exactly.
in a big spot. I mean,
it just adds a level of excitement that there currently isn't to
I like
the game,
it.
and I'm all for it.
I like it, even if it means there's no surprise onside kicks, because there weren't that many of those anyway.
The only one I could remember specifically was the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like, was it Indy New Orleans?
Yeah.
Sean Payton came out and did
That's
the surprise, which would be a bummer to take out. But that's one when there's a Super Bowl. 2009?
And plus, when you do have an onside kick,
you can overload the field now.
you can overload the field, so you're more likely to recover it.
Yeah.
Still not likely to recover it, but more likely than you are currently. Yeah. So I'll give it a thumbs up.
I'm all for it. Any way to make a play that's currently a 0, a something again.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I don't know what the downside. Right now, it can't get worse. Like, with all due respect to the NFL, it's a great product, but
they take punts out too. Like, punts is like you can't hit the long snapper makes every tackle. You can't hit him. Like he's uncovered. Like so, he makes a tackle. It's like punts and that used to be a major part of special teams. When
Beamer
people
ball.
say special teams wins game, now you're not doing that.
My nephew, I was in Florida, obviously.
You were?
And yeah, in case you hadn't heard. And my sister and my brother-in-law and my nephew came down for the second weekend we were there. They were going to 2 spring training games, and we met up with them for dinner. And my nephew, who's a baseball player, that's his passion, and that's what he's really good at, told me he hasn't played football. He did as a little kid, but he's like, he's been practicing being a kicker. He's like, I want to get hurt playing football because I love baseball, but he's like, maybe I can get a scholarship being a kicker. So he's been training as a kicker. And I said, well, that's a good idea, but also think about long snapper. And I said, and also, because I was telling him that this guy I worked with in New York, his son just got a college scholarship being a long snapper.
It's the best thing in the world.
Long snapper, kicker, you don't get hit much.
If you out there and you got a son and you know he likes sports, but he may not have the size, athleticism to play with her, send him to a college camp, right, in summers, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, wherever it's going to be. They give out, and if he's there and is able to long snap, he's going to get on the board, and he's going to be on one of a short list of guys who are going to be eligible to get a scholarship for long snapper. By the way, they don't get tackled. If you touch them in practice, you're in trouble. Like, they don't hit anybody. They don't do any of that. Full scholarship is one of the best things in the world.
And if you're good, you could play 20 years. You're never going to get a ton of money, relatively, but you could make $1 million a year for 15 years.
Yes, you can.
Real quick long snapper story. When I was in Texas,
Yeah.
there was a little tiny private high school there. A kid named Levi Hancock. It was a TAPS, which is like the Christian schools, or the private schools, whatever. He won all-state quarterback in that division like 3 years in a row. Was like 6'2", 220 pounds, a man amongst boys in that level of football. Got a full ride to A&M as a long snapper. And I went out and did a story on him and his long snapper training. Like, how'd you pick up on it? He's like, I was just messing around in practice one day, and I long snapped it on the money from like 20 yards out.
Yeah.
Ended up being the #1 rated long snapper in the country in his class. And it's like, is it hard? He's like, well, I could throw the football 60 yards, so this is, for me. And I was like, you never think of it, but he wasn't a D1 quarterback.
Right.
He's now a 3-year letterman at A&M as
Yeah.
a long snapper. Like, I wonder how he's doing, but good for you,
If you
Levi.
could do it, you could do it in 1.1, 1.1 point.
Yeah.
They time you, and you could be on the money at all times, even when it's wet. That's
They're
like
hysterical workouts too. Like they snap towels.
Yeah.
Like they fake snap towels and they push the weight back and they take 3 scoots backwards and they push the weight back. It's a funny workout to watch.
They just go by themselves. Like they're just like the punter, the kicker, the long snapper. They're in really good shape because they just run.